Hey, we are live. Except for Instagram. Let me get Instagram on. Just one moment. But thank you all for joining me live. It doesn't look like it's connecting to Instagram, so that's all good. Thank y'all for joining me live. Whoever can see me, I'm live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram's not connecting. I don't know, it's acting funny. But today we are talking about the genetic component of cognitive decline. So if any of you are concerned about Alzheimer's or dementia, or really I'll just share even why I'm interested in brain health, and I have been for quite some time. I'm a millennial, and the time we're living in now, where most of us are making our money, our income, we're able to eat, survive, have a roof over our head, using our brains, right? There was a time in our history where folks used their brawn, their body, to make money, and now we're at a time where your own intellectual property from your imagination, right, is how you make money. And for those of you who are not entrepreneurs and are employees, your cognitive abilities, your ability to be on time, which is making wise decisions, have harmonious relationships at work, which means your temporal lobes are working properly, and have great memory recall, things of that nature, right? Just like intellectual capacity. That's how you make your money. That's how you advance in your career. So this is why I've personally been interested in brain health for quite some time. Most of you who've been following me for a long time know that I have a personal history watching my grandmother suffer with type 2 diabetes and then have a long, drawn-out, painful death due to complications from that disease. Alzheimer's has been talked about being type 3 diabetes because the mechanism that causes it is pretty much the same. There is a genetic component that we are going to be talking about today. And Jalen, thank you so much for joining live. You're asking, have you heard of postprandial hypotension? It's linked to Alzheimer's. That's really interesting. But in terms of blood pressure, yes, you need to have proper blood pressure, of course, because your brain, the healthy functioning of your brain is dependent on a healthy cardiovascular system. So when it comes to your blood pressure readings, making sure that is at a healthy level is important for the health of your brain, and not just your cognitive abilities, but also your mental health and mental well-being. I'm talking about staving off anxiety, depression, issues around bipolar. There's other issues with that as well, like hormonal balance, which I believe we may or may not have talked about one of these weeks in the series, and thyroid balance. But all of this stuff I do cover in my Beat Stress Eating training. So I really hope you guys, if you're interested in having a healthy mind, because your mind, your brain, is the organ of your personality. It is the organ that is managing everything you think, feel, and do, how you act in community, at work, at home, right? Your behavior. And we cover all the things you need to know in terms of the labs you need to run, the numbers you need to be aware of when it comes to your the health of your body and the functioning of your brain in the Beat Stress Eating training. So as soon as you sign up for that, you get a workbook with that information. So you can head on over to rawfoodmealplanner.com to register. I also have the link in the description to this video and a QR code. If you can see it, you can just scan that QR code and it'll take you to the registration page. So, genetic risk is not a death sentence. It's a wake-up call, right? Just like everything else, Even when I talk about type 2 diabetes, right, which I educate on a lot, if you have folks in your family that have type 2 diabetes or died from type 2 diabetes complications, you know that you just need to have your eye on the prize in terms of like living a lifestyle that is preventative of type 2 diabetes, right? The same thing when it comes to Alzheimer's and dementia, and when we talk about cognitive decline, mental health, there are 11 risk factors, and that's the series we've been going through. I started in April, and I think I just went live on LinkedIn. But folks in my Facebook group, the Raw Food Health Empowerment Circle, I think I did this training with you all, where the 11 risk factors, once you get that under control, you are in a really great place, and you continue to live a brain healthy lifestyle. You're in a great place to stave off Alzheimer's and dementia. And if you have started to have some cognitive decline, you can reverse it in many cases, or you can halt the progress. At least, with Alzheimer's, we can halt the progress of its advancement. So your genetic risk is not a death sentence. It's just a wake-up call for you to live a brain healthy lifestyle. But honestly, I'm not waiting to get tested or my parents to get tested for a genetic risk. I am living a brain healthy lifestyle because I need my mental health and mental well-being just to have quality of life, right? So this is why it's important to me. What does genetic risk actually look like when we, think about the brain? Specifically, APOE4 gene. This is the gene that has been linked to Alzheimer's. So if you have one or two parents that have it, you're at higher risk. But like I said, once you run that test, if that's what you're seeing, that only means that this lifestyle needs to be a priority for you, or else you run the risk of getting Alzheimer's and dementia. I mean, sometimes you can just look around you. If you have a parent that's dealing with dementia right now, you really need to be living a brain healthy lifestyle. And what does that look like? We've talked about some of the things, and we will continue to talk about them over the weeks. But one of the critical things is getting sufficient amounts of sleep, right? Sleep. Don't sleep on sleep, okay? Sleep is when your brain is doing most of its work. It's taking a shower, right? Your brain is the most metabolically hungry organ of your body. And one of the critical pieces in keeping it well is your metabolic health, which takes into account, like Jalen mentioned, your blood pressure and some other metrics of the body. That's what, when we talk about metabolic health, it's not just one thing. We're not just looking at body fat percentage, or waist to height ratio. We're looking at a lot of different factors. And so you'll get that information on the labs to run when you sign up for the Beat Stress Eating training. But if you see that in your family, there are mental health disturbances, there's dementia, there's Alzheimer's, you need to be paying attention to the health of your brain. You need to get proper sleep. You need to make sure you exercise on a consistent basis. You need to make sure you really optimize your nutrition. And interesting thing, there's always new stuff coming out about Alzheimer's. I recently read in medical news today, they were talking about how they pinpointed that proteins clumping together basically is what's causing dementia, essentially, right? And the way it's being described, right, this beta amyloid plaque buildup that happens in the brain that is leading to this reminds me a lot of the concept of glycation. Now, what glycation is basically, let's say you eat refined sugar, which most people are. What's happening in the body is like the proteins are sticking together, they're sticking to other things, right? And so the body, instead of working efficiently as it's meant to do, things get stuck and sticky and stick together. So everything starts to act really slow and sluggish, and so you're not optimized. Well, what causes this issue? What studies and science have figured out is what causes glycation are certain types of foods: meat is a major one. Also, when you cook food, you get advanced glycation end products, right? You get more than you do raw food. Raw food is at the bottom of this chain, which is why I really like to encourage folks with all things. If you're on a weight loss journey, raw foods. If you are looking for hormonal balance, raw foods. If you are looking for cancer recovery, cancer prevention, raw foods, because raw foods doesn't allow you, one, to get in any processed stuff, right? So any addictions to processed foods, right, which have all these harmful chemicals that are affecting the brain, affecting our mental health and well-being. You don't have that in that lifestyle, in that paradigm of a raw food lifestyle. And even when you commit to it on a high raw vegan lifestyle, since the majority of what you're eating is raw foods, you tend to be a lot cleaner with your diet than folks who are maybe on a vegan diet, on a whole food plant-based, because whole food plant-based typically means that it's plant-based, not plant exclusive, right? So that means folks are still incorporating meat. And like I said, when you eat meat, you're getting high amounts of advanced glycation end products. So all of the inner workings of the body on a cellular level is being compromised because of this, right? And so they're seeing this show up in the brain. So I'm not surprised that folks are having, like we highlighted in my last summit, the Thrive Through Food Summit, when we focused in on nutrition's role in mental health, we had a lot of people talk about how raw foods help them come out of anxiety, depression, their whole energy, they got happier, right? More joyful, having all this colorful fruit and vegetables in these raw foods, and it makes total sense. It's backed by science, it's evidence-based, right? While I really enjoy my woo friends and the woo community, I just want to assure you, for anyone who is a skeptic, that this is evidence-based, cited, okay? And come to my trainings, because I always love to make book recommendations and things like this. This is not like, I don't know. This information is already out there. Not enough people know about it, right? Obviously, which is why I'm spreading the news. But it's all backed by science. Now, in terms of the genetic component, getting a screening may be helpful if you have this APOE4 gene, right? If you run the labs and you see that you have this gene, then you may want to get a SPECT scan. A SPECT stands for single photon emission computerized tomography, something like this. It's basically a nuclear study of the brain. It looks at blood flow, and so you want to see proper blood flow, right? Not too much, which can cause issues, not too little, which causes tons of issues, right? You basically drop function in those areas of the brain. But this, alongside like a proper health history and doing a proper intake, will help you kind of figure out next steps forward, like where your brain is at right now. Do an assessment. Now, most people don't have access to one of the Amen clinics to actually get this SPECT scan done. And so the clients that I work with, I have them do an assessment online. And it's a little bit more cost effective and just more convenient. So you don't really have to travel to get a scan. But if you do get a scan, obviously it's pretty much black and white. This is what your brain is looking like. Because, I'm sure with the assessments, while it's really great, maybe there's some room for error, because it's all based off of like your opinion on how you're feeling and what's going on, whereas a scan is just literally taking a snapshot of where your brain is at right now. Also, you want to limit high glycemic food. So even when, I talk about raw foods, if you are at a genetic predisposition for brain health issues, limiting high glycemic foods, or limiting. I wouldn't say eliminate them because they could be quite good. For example, pineapples. Pineapples are considered a high glycemic food. I know for me personally, when I have pineapples, I tend to have them in a smoothie. Well, I've had them as a juice, and definitely that needs, celery, cucumbers, water, to water down because it is quite sweet. But even in smoothie form, I feel the difference in my mental health, just how my brain is feeling. Drinking it in a smoothie in the morning tends to plummet my focus. I get more irritable, right? And so, you can actually test this for yourself, which I highly recommend, right? To find the right diet for you, for your brain health, because I encourage you to eat right for your brain type. And we go through that in some of my other trainings. But you have to fine tune what works well for you. Because what we saw even in the summit, the Thrive Through Food Summit, that looked at nutrition's role in mental health, you can see across the board, folks are doing slightly different things. Even in the raw food world, you have folks who are doing 30-day fruit feasts, right? And they're only doing like grapes, or maybe they're incorporating other fruits and they're feeling amazing, body fat lost, mood improved, all of this stuff. And then you have other folks who really thrive on the high fat, raw style of eating, right? That's how they're able to maintain, and they do really well on that. And there are reasons for this. There are biological reasons for this, but ultimately what you need to know and remember is that the concept of bioindividuality always matters, even if you're within the plant food kingdom, because the plant food kingdom is our species specific diet, right? Within that, there are diets, there are different ways to eat based off of your own unique microbiome and your brain type. So you want to kind of fine tune that. But for most people, what you may find is that when you start the day with high glycemic foods, then your ability to be productive in that day is really hindered. So maybe you want to move that towards later in the day. Saturated fat foods, you don't really need, right? There are some that aren't gonna be a big issue. I know some folks have asked, I think last time, or one of the last trainings I did, I'm not sure if it was online here or in one of the other groups that I train in, but someone asked or has asked about oils, right? So when it comes to coconut oil, right, this is a saturated fat. Is it gonna make your brain go bad? I mean, if you're having it on a regular basis, I don't see why you would do that, right? Because oil has no fiber. You have all of this calorie density without the fiber, and very little nutrients in comparison to the whole food. So I would highly recommend you don't do that. You don't really need to do that, especially if you're concerned about like omega-3s and fats for the brain, because that's the essential fat that we're looking for the brain, your omega-3 fatty acids, and you're not going to get that from these oils. I mean, you could. It's better to get it from the whole food. So like instead of getting avocado oil, eat the avocado, right? You can eat walnuts instead of getting any kind of like nut oils, chia seed, flaxseed. There was a time where I experimented with flaxseed oil. And first of all, it's quite pricey, right? To get decent flaxseed oil, because it has to be the high quality, because obviously you don't want rancid oil because it's not going to do you any good. So high quality oil, it's like in a really good seal with a real like opaque bottle, so no light can cut through. And even with these high quality oils, the taste is like, it's way more enjoyable just to eat the actual whole food, number one. And number two, you're going to have more satiation. It's going to help with your metabolic health, because body fat is critical here. If you have too much body fat, especially on your midsection, it is working against your brain health. So we need to curb that and get that under control, including all these processed foods. You got the cheeses and the microwave popcorn and all sorts of things. If this is a struggle for you, right, getting off of processed foods and ultra processed foods, then I highly recommend that you come to my free training, Beat Stress Eating. We get started on June 5th, but we have a Facebook group and it opens up June 3rd. So I would love for you to register by June 3rd, but we start session 1 June 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So you want to make sure you get in, get your workbook, get all cozy, maybe do some of the pre-work by actually going to the doctor and requesting those labs. So you come in at least knowing where you are, and kind of figuring out your plan moving forward, right? On how to optimize your brain health and your mental health and well-being. Some spices to include, right, in your cuisine as you're thinking about a healthy brain. Curcumin is one, turmeric, cayenne pepper, great for circulation, and also cooking with sage. In terms of foods to eat, there are a lot of foods. And like I said, instead of pinpointing this food is good for the brain, like the walnut looks like a brain, and blueberries and stuff like blueberries, yeah, they're all great for the brain. But more so, because the health of the brain is dependent on the health of your gut, and the health of your gut is dependent on a diverse microbiome, right? How do you get a diverse microbiome? You have to eat a diversity of plant foods. So I really don't want you to focus in on, the 5 foods for brain health. No, right? You want to really focus in on getting a variety of different plant foods and making sure to eat as raw as possible if you really want to optimize brain function. Because like they're saying, in current research, as they're still trying to figure out, okay, how do we not just halt Alzheimer's, but like reverse Alzheimer's, which according to science is not possible. But what we can see from the SPECT scans is that you can reverse cognitive decline. So depending on where you are, obviously if you have dead tissue, you can't revive dead tissue, right? But if folks are willing to do what most people aren't willing to do because they are really in the grips of unhealthy food addiction, like if you do some of the things that I'm telling you and go all the way 100%, then you would be amazed at what the body is capable of doing, right? So I know I have a friend who shall not be named, who always says, don't say it can't be done, right? There are a lot of things at play when it comes to health and healing of the body. There's the spiritual aspect, right? We've seen, even within the cancer world, spontaneous remission of cancer. And folks are trying to figure out, how did that happen? Besides the healing aspects of food, there is a spiritual component. There is the component of belief, right? Which is the whole, what do you call it? The placebo or nocebo effect, right? That the power of belief, right? It has a role to play when we talk about the healing of the body. But I do want to be completely honest with you, whereas what we have evidence for, and also leave the door open and the possibility, if you or someone is dealing with Alzheimer's or dealing with dementia, right? It is worth it to do these things that I'm telling you and come to the Beat Stress Eating training to learn more about the brain and how to support the different areas of the brain, to give your brain the opportunity to be the best it can be at that moment, right? Because whatever damage has been done that cannot be reversed, you can at least optimize what can be reversed, right? And there's usually something that can be improved, right? Whether it's all over the body, right? Not just the brain, but cardiovascular health, gut health. I mean, the gut is probably one of the easiest, other than the cardiovascular, because of how quickly these cells are renewing and regenerating, right? Every time you eat is an opportunity to heal, right? So because especially in the gut, the cells of the lining of the gut are dying off and new cells are coming online pretty quickly. So it's never too late, right? That's what I want to underscore. It's never too late. Don't get alarmed by genetic testing, right? Just have it be kind of like a motivator. So like for me personally, what I see in my family happening, watching my grandma with her suffering with type 2 diabetes, having a cousin die at 41 due to sleep apnea, another cousin who died recently due to a pulmonary embolism. I mean, I learned from this stuff. Oh, I see what's going on in my family. What do I need to do to avoid that, right? Because I want to live. Like right now in my family, we're experiencing parents burying their children. And this is not what we want. This is not how things should be, right? I don't want to put that kind of pain on my parents. So I'm doing the best that I can to take care of myself and also educate myself so that I'm better prepared and able to take care of my aging parents, right? So some of this stuff that I'm teaching you is also really helpful for me to have in mind, what does Alzheimer's and dementia look like so I can be prepared for it, so I'm not triggered, I'm not emotionally being bothered by something that this person really has no control over, because that's really what we're dealing with. When your brain is under duress, which I talk about in the training, in the Beat Stress Eating training, it's under duress due to not getting the proper care, whether it be nutrition, physical activity, or a healthy, brain-healthy lifestyle. Then the person basically becomes a different person, right? Their behavior is different. The way they're talking, they may be rude, aggressive, irritable. And at that point, you're not dealing with the same person that you knew, okay? It doesn't mean that they're all of a sudden a bad person. This organ of the brain is no longer doing well. And that's one of the things I really want to drive home, right? We have in our society a lot of empathy for folks who are going through cancer, who maybe have a sprained ankle or a broken foot, because we can see it. And cancer has been talked about so much that we have an understanding like this is not necessarily, even though we all have some responsibility, right? None of us want to be victims, right? So there's some level of responsibility here. But it's not necessarily like their fault. They're not bad people because of this. And it's the same thing when it comes to the brain. Someone may come off as like a jerk, nasty, hard to deal with, but they're not necessarily bad people. Their brain is not doing well, right? It's an organ that is not functioning properly, that's sick, that's broken, right? And I recently actually wrote an article on LinkedIn inspired by something that happened in Bronx, New York this week that really, really I'm like, wow, this was so avoidable if we actually set up our cities in a brain healthy way, which we can do. They're literally whole countries with a brain health agenda. This stuff is being talked about even on a global level with the World Economic Forum and other institutions talking about this. I think within America, our cities, if we were set up as brain healthy cities and made that an intention to be a priority, we would have safer cities, we would have healthier cities. People would actually, we would have more social interactions with our neighbors. We would be fitter and healthier because folks would be outside working out, taking walks, because they felt safe if we had a brain health agenda in cities. So this is something I'm really hoping that comes to fruition. If you're interested in reading that article that I wrote on LinkedIn, definitely comment below. I'd love to share it with you because I would really love to see us in my lifetime, manifest, because I think that's what our country in particular needs at this moment. Anyway, I really hope to see you at the Beat Stress Eating training, and I hope this was helpful and kind of set your mind a little bit at ease that there are things you can do. If you got a diagnosis or know someone with a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia, don't panic, eat organic, okay? And keep it as raw as possible. Stay in the plant kingdom and follow some of the other things that I'm mentioning. It may seem like a lot, but ultimately what it is you're stepping into a brain healthy lifestyle, and you just take it one day at a time, implementing as much as possible as you can that feels comfortable for you, and then working through with a coach, and I'm here and available for coaching, to integrate some of the other things so it becomes who you are and how you operate in the world, so you don't have to think about it. It won't be an extra thing. Because I've heard this too on social media. People are like, all this stuff I got to do to live a healthy lifestyle, right? It's so much, right? It becomes overwhelming. But things tend to feel like that in the beginning, especially if you don't have support and the right support system around you. Most of us, if you're not already living a brain healthy lifestyle, we're like the five people we most hang around, right? And so if the people we hang around don't have this as an intention, they're not necessarily living that lifestyle, then it's not surprising that we're not as well. And so once you step into that, you now become a leader of your pack, doing a new thing, doing something different. And it really is helpful when you kind of like outsource your brain a little bit and get that additional support, right? So it's less overwhelming. So if you're interested in that, I'm definitely here. And I think the first step for you is joining the Beat Stress Eating training. And through there, I'll also offer you a free coaching call so we can get you started on that path to eating and living a brain healthy lifestyle. In the training, I'll explain more about what that means, what that looks like, what's actually going on in the brain, and why we should care. We should all care, right? This should be, like I said, a priority for every single human on the planet, but absolutely here in America, where we have guns available and lots of toxins in our food system. I mean, make the math. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not making sense. Like, we are at a moment where the values we say that we care about, like, we need to match it with policy and action on a governmental level at this point. Anyway, I will stop preaching today because it's not Sunday. So let me stop the preaching. But I hope to see you in the Beat Stress Eating training. And with that, I leave you. God bless.